I'm Curt Frye. In this video, I would like to show you how to find the last value from a data column when you don't know which cell is the last one that contains data. The sample file that I'm using is named last value in column, and you can download it using the link that I provide in the video description below. In this workbook, I have a single worksheet, and here I have a list of monthly sales data for the years 2024 and 2025 with only the last 2 months of 2024. And my goal is to create a formula that will find the last cell in column C that isn't empty. In other words, that contains a sales value counting from the bottom up. So I'll start in cell E2, which I've already selected, by typing equal. And for this, we can use the XLOOKUP function. So I'll enter that. The lookup value will be true. And this formula is a little counterintuitive, but that is what makes it interesting. So we have true, then a comma, and then the lookup array will be the cells from C2 through C15, but to make sure that our rule works correctly, I'm going to extend that to C16, which is actually empty. So I'll have C2, then a colon, C16. And again, I'm intentionally including the blank cell below our data list, then setting it not equal to the null value, or basically a blank cell. So what this rule does is it looks in cell C2 through C16 and finds the first cell that is not blank. So that, if we look from the bottom up, will be C15. And we want to return the value from C2 colon C16. And then to tell XLOOKUP to start from the bottom, we need to type a couple of commas. And the last argument you can set, search mode, is going to be changed to -1. So we will search last to first. Press tab to get -1 in, right parentheses and enter. And we get the value of 27,354, even though we were technically looking all the way down to C16. Because C16 is a blank, we return the next value above it. And the great thing about this formula is that if I do add a value in C16, so I'll do 2026, January, 30,000, and enter, then the formula updates. However, if I add a value into C17, so 2026, February, 35,000, and tab, it doesn't update, and the reason is that it only looks as far as C16. There are a couple of ways to fix that problem. The first one works well if you're not able to create an Excel table, but the second method I'll show you using an Excel table is actually the one I prefer. So I will click in cell E2, and I'll recreate the formula from the start. So I'll type equal, XLOOKUP. The lookup value again is true, then a comma. The lookup array will be, instead of C2 through C17, which I would have to update every month, I will change that to C2, a colon, and then a dot after the colon. And this allows the range to extend. Basically what Excel does is take a look at the last cell that is used in cell C2 through, let's say, C100, and says, okay, the formula goes as far as that. And in this case, we'd have multiple years of data, and we would probably still be using the same spreadsheet, but at least we would be able to update the formula. So you have C2 through C100, and then I typed a comma too quickly because I need to say that it is not equal to a blank or basically an empty cell. The return array will be exactly the same as the lookup array, so that'll be C2 colon dot C100. Then a comma. If not found, we don't need to worry about. Match mode, we don't need to worry about. Search mode, again, will be -1 to search from the bottom up. Right parentheses and enter, and we get 35,000. Now, if I add another value, 2026, March, let's be optimistic, 40,000. Press tab, and the formula updates as well. I also mentioned that we can create an Excel table. So I will delete the values in A16 through C16. So I'll delete that and the formula result updates. And I will create an Excel table using the list currently in columns A through C. So I've clicked a cell that contains data, and then on the Home tab, I'll click Format as Table, click a table style, and then OK to create the table. Note that the formula did not update. In other words, it doesn't realize that we created a table. So let's update the formula so that it points to the sales column of our table. So I will select on the formula bar C2 period C100 for the dynamic range. And then I will select the sales column in the table. And I know the mouse pointer is in the right place when it changes to a downward pointing black arrow when I'm over the column header. So I've got that, table 1 sales, and I will do exactly the same thing for the return array. And then enter, and I get the value. And if I go down and press tab, while in the last cell of the last row, I get a new row in the table, 2026, January. I believe I said 30,000 last time. And I'll press enter, and the formula result updates, and that will happen every time that I add a new row to my Excel table. I created all of these formulas and lookups on the same worksheet as the data list, but I think you can see that if you're trying to get data from another worksheet that's not immediately visible to you, then the technique that I showed you will be extremely valuable because you don't have to go back and forth trying to figure out where the last cell that contains data is for use in your other formulas. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please like it and subscribe to my channel.